Back in 2019, I was a sophomore in college living in a cheap, off-campus basement apartment. I was going through a phase where I was obsessed with internet privacy and the unseen web. I had the whole setup, a premium VPN routed through Switzerland, and a Tor browser running on a bootable USB, and a thick piece of black electric tape firmly stuck over my laptop's webcam. I honestly thought I was a ghost online. Mostly the deep web is boring. It's 90% dead links, broken directories, and edgy teenagers pretending to be international arms dealers. I'd spend hours just clicking through link dumps, looking for something genuinely weird. Around 2:30 a.m. on a Tuesday, I hit a plain text directory hosted on the a.onion domain. The header just said, unsecured optics. Underneath was a massive, scrolling list of raw IP addresses. I recognized the format. It was a directory of unsecured IP cameras. Usually, these are traffic cams, factory floors, or baby monitors where people never bothered to change the default factory password. Morbid curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked a random link near the very bottom of the page. The browser hung for a moment before loading a grainy, low frame rate video player. There was no audio. The feed was completely black except for the sickly green tint of cheap infrared night vision. I leaned closer to my monitor, trying to make out the shapes. It looked like a bedroom. I could see the silhouette of a cheap desk, a precarious pile of laundry on the floor, and a bed shoved into a far corner. Someone was asleep in the bed, completely buried under a heavy, patterned comforter. I felt a sudden, sharp pang of guilt. This wasn't a traffic cam. I was looking into someone's private sanctuary while they slept. I moved my mouse up to close the tab, but my cursor froze when the person in the bed shifted. An arm slid out from under the heavy blanket and reached blindly for a phone resting on the nightstand. The phone screen lit up, casting a harsh, pale blue light across the person's face. My stomach dropped into a bottomless pit. The air in my lungs just vanished. The person on the screen, it was me. I was staring at a live, delayed feed of myself. My mind violently rejected what I was seeing, but I couldn't deny the details. The patterned comforter was mine. The pile of laundry was exactly where I left it. I was completely paralyzed. My eyes darted around the video feed, trying to figure out where the angle was coming from. It was high up, pointing down, coming from the dark corner of my ceiling, right above the doors of my closet. Slowly, terrifyingly, I lifted my actual head and looked away from my laptop screen, staring into the pitch black corner above my closet in real life. I couldn't see anything in the dark, no blinking red light, no lens reflection, nothing. But I knew it was there. When I forced my eyes back down on my laptop screen, my blood turned into ice water. A small, crude chat box had materialized in the bottom right corner of the web player. Above it, a counter read, "Viewers, 1." Then, a message appeared in the box. It said observer_99. This is what it said.
You have a really bad habit of leaving your closet unlocked.
Before I could even process the words, before I could even push my chair back from the desk, I heard it, coming from less than 10 feet away. A click. It was the distinct metallic sound of a doorknob turning from the inside of my closet. I didn't grab my phone, my keys, or my shoes. I threw myself backwards, my desk chair crashing onto the floor, and I bolted out of the front door of my apartment into the freezing night air in just my boxers and t-shirt. I sprinted down the street to an all-night gas station and begged the cashier to call 911. The police searched my apartment an hour later. They found a tiny, battery-powered pinhole camera drilled through the drywall above my closet frame. But worse than that, they found what was inside the closet. The ceiling access panel leading to the building's crawlspace had been pushed aside. Inside that dusty, cramped space, they found food wrappers, a few empty water bottles, and a filthy sleeping bag positioned right above my bedroom. Whoever it was had been living up there, watching me sleep. waiting for the right time to come down. They never caught him. I broke my lease the next day, and still physically cannot sleep in a room unless the closet door is wedged shut with a chair. Well, that's my experience with the deep web that made me not want to go back on. A few years ago, I was moderately active on the darknet marketplace that has long since been seized by the feds. I won't name it, but if you know, you know. I wasn't buying weapons or stolen identities. I just used it to buy small amounts of weed. It was cheaper, better quality, and honestly, felt safer than doing sketchy handoffs in grocery store parking lots. I prided myself on operational security. I used Tails OS, PGP encryption for all communications, and tumbled my cryptocurrency before making a purchase. Most importantly, I never used my real name or address. There was a foreclosed, rotting house 2 streets from my mom's place. I'd have the packages sent there under a fake name, track the shipment religiously, and just snatch the mail out of the rusted box the second the postal worker drove away. It worked flawlessly for over a year. I haven't logged into the market or placed an order in almost 2 months. I was just booting up Tails one afternoon to browse and see what was new. The second the market loaded, a notification pinged. I had a direct message from a vendor account I had never seen before. The username was just a random string of 12 digits. The message was chillingly brief, and it said,
"I have a delivery that requires your immediate and specific attention."
Attached below the text was a standard USPS tracking number. My heart did a weird flutter, but I tried to rationalize it. Maybe a vendor I used previously got busted and the feds were fishing. Maybe it was a scam. I copied the tracking number, booted up a clean browser, and pasted it into this regular USPS website. The status bar was a bright green. It said out for delivery. But my eyes locked into the destination zip code. It wasn't the zip code for the foreclosed house 2 streets over. It was my actual real home zip code. The house where I lived with my mom and my teenage sister. At this point, pure suffocating panic set in. It was 1:45 p.m. The mail usually came between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock. I paced a hole in my living room rug, peering through the blinds every 30 seconds. At 2:50 p.m., the familiar white mail truck hummed up to our curb. The carrier didn't just put the mail in the box. He walked up our driveway carrying a heavily taped, square cardboard box and dropped it heavily onto our front porch. I yanked the front door open before he was even back in his truck, grabbed the box, and practically sprinted to our detached garage. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely grip the box cutter. Inside the box, there were no vacuum-sealed bags or drugs. There were only 2 items resting on a bed of packing peanuts. The first was a cheap, black prepaid flip phone. The second was a single, glossy 8x10 photograph. I picked up the photo and my vision blurred for a second. It was a picture of my mother. She was standing in our kitchen, wearing her favorite blue bathrobe, pouring a cup of coffee. The true horror wasn't just the subject, it was the angle. The photo had been taken from the thick tree line in our backyard looking directly through the kitchen window. I looked at the bottom right corner of the glossy paper. The digital timestamp printed there was from 6:15 a.m. that exact morning. The second I dropped the photo, the burner phone in the box rang. It was the loudest, most jarring, obnoxious ringtone I've ever heard. It echoed in the quiet garage. I stared at it for 4 rings before my trembling hand reached out and flipped it open. I pressed it to my ear, but I didn't say a single word. A synthetic, digitized text-to-speech voice came through the terrible speaker. It didn't ask if I was there. It just started listing facts. It recited my full legal name. It recited my mother's maiden name. It recited the address of my high school my sister attended. the exact make and model of the car she drove, and the time she got out of marching band practice on Tuesdays. Then the robotic voice delivered its instructions. This is what it said.
Your security is an illusion. We need a clean address to receive a package that cannot risk interception. You will leave your back patio door unlocked on Tuesday night. The package will be placed inside your kitchen. Do not open it. Do not touch it. Do not look at it. Our associate will retrieve it on Thursday morning. If you attempt to involve law enforcement, the next photograph delivered to you will be taken from the inside of your sister's bedroom closet.
The line clicked dead. There was no hero moment. I didn't grab a baseball bat and stand guard. I walked back inside, told my mom I smelled a massive gas leak in the basement, and told her we needed to leave immediately. I grabbed my sister from school, and we drove 5 hours across the state lines to stay with my aunt. I called the local police for a suspicious person at my house, but I called them that Wednesday from a payphone. They dispatched a cruiser, checked the perimeter, and found nothing. We never went back to that house. My mom broke the lease, packed our things with police escorts a week later, and we moved to a different county. I still lie awake at night wondering what was supposed to be in that package. And I thank God I was too much of a coward to find out. If you dig deep enough into the obscure forums of the dark web, past the illegal marketplaces and the hacker boards, you eventually stumble across ARGs, alternate reality games. Usually there's just creepy, elaborate puzzles made by bored computer science majors involving cryptography, finding hidden text and audio files, and deciphering map coordinates. I was entirely obsessed with them. It felt like being a detective in a movie, uncovering secrets the rest of the world was blind to. I found a hidden forum that looked like a relic from 2005. It had no title, no banner, just a black background and a single thread. The only thing on it was a daily post from an admin containing a massive unbroken string of hexadecimal code. It took me 3 solid weeks of sleepless nights, neglecting my job and friends to crack the cipher. It was layered with AES encryption and required a specific cipher key hidden in the source code of the site. When I finally ran the decryption script, it sped out 2 lines of plain text, a set of precise GPS coordinates, and the time, 2:14 a.m. I mapped the coordinates. They pointed to a dilapidated, long-abandoned strip mall about 40 minutes outside my city limits, surrounded by nothing but dense woods and empty highways. My ARG brain took over. I convinced myself it was the physical drop for the next stage of the puzzle. A hidden USB drive taped under a bench, or a notebook hidden in the weeds. So, like an absolute idiot, I drove out there. I pulled into the cracked, weed-choked asphalt lot around 1:45 a.m. I parked my car behind a massive rusted commercial dumpster at the far end of the lot, turned off my headlights, and killed the engine. The silence out there was heavy and oppressive. The only light came from a single, dying street lamp, flickering out by the main road. I sat in the dark, my breath fogging up the windshield, waiting. Exactly 2:14 a.m., the gravel near the entrance crunched. A heavily rusted, unmarked white cargo van slowly rolled into the lot. It didn't have its headlights on. It had no license plates. It rolled to a silent stop about 50 feet from my hiding spot behind the dumpster. 2 men got out of the front doors. They were wearing dark clothes, their faces obscured by the shadows. They didn't exchange a single word. They walked around to the back of the van, threw open the heavy rear doors, and grabbed a hold of something inside. With a heavy grunt, they dragged a massive object wrapped in thick, dark tarp out into the pavement. The moment it hit the ground, the tarp started thrashing. It wasn't the frantic, jerky movements of a captured animal. The movements were too long, too desperate, too distinctly human. Though the thick canvas, I could hear muffled, agonizing grunts and the sound of someone hyperventilating against a gag. I stopped breathing entirely. I slid down in my driver's seat until my knees hit the steering column, praying to any god that would listen that the darkness and the dumpster were enough to hide my car. The two men bent down, grabbed the thrashing bundle by either end, and heaved it upward. They swung it over the lip of a second commercial dumpster near the van, letting it drop inside with a sickening hollow thud. They slammed the heavy plastic lid down, latched it, got back in the van, and drove away without ever turning their lights on. I sat perfectly still, paralyzed by a primal, suffocating terror. I couldn't move. For 10 agonizing minutes, I could hear a faint, rhythmic thumping coming from the inside of the dumpster across the lot, and then the thumping stopped. I sat there for almost an hour, too terrified to reach for my keys, convinced the van was waiting just out of sight. When I finally mustered up the courage to lift my trembling hand toward the ignition, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket. In the dead silence of the car, it sounded like a gunshot. It was an email notification. The sender was a string of random numbers, the exact same string of numbers that served as the admin's username on the ARG forum. My fingers were slick with sweat as I opened the email. There was no text in the body of this message, just a single attached image file. I tapped the image. It was a dash cam photograph taken using high-end night vision. The image was of my car, parked exactly where I was, behind the dumpster. The photo had clearly been taken from the dashboard of the white van while it was parked 50 feet away. If I zoomed in, I could see the faint outline of my own face peering over the steering wheel. The subject line of the email read, "Thanks for verifying the drop. Stay right there. We're turning around to get you." I didn't care about making noise anymore. I slammed the key into the ignition, threw the car in reverse, and I floored it. I hit the main road doing 80 miles an hour, running every red light until I hit the city limits. I drove straight into the parking lot of the main police precinct, ran inside, and babbled the whole story to the desk sergeant. When a heavily armed unit raided the strip mall dumpster an hour later, they didn't find the body. What they found was a heavy, dark tarp, sliced open and completely soaked in fresh blood. And zip-tied to the inside of the handle of the dumpster lid was a single laminated piece of paper with a message printed on it. You were supposed to help them.
Nightmare Files.